Hey guys, welcome to Iron Reviews podcast. This is a special episode that we're doing just now. Just something that Matthew and I cooked up for something else to do and just to kind of rectify. So yes, I do have a special guest. Please welcome Matt back to the channel again. How are you doing again? You alright?
Hello, yes, thank you very much for again. Like I said, it's been a good day. I enjoyed doing the Aberdeen Live Music one, and I'm thrilled to be back to do this one. I think we can safely say we're talking about a legend in music.
Oh yes, Yep. We are discussing today our Iron Maiden album rankings. We thought this was appropriate considering we're both massive fans of Maiden.
We are.
Seen them twice together. Seen them many other times not together.
I've seen them twice. I've now seen Maiden 3 times. I mean, I got into them a bit later than other rock and metal bands. Like I was always into Priest first and Sabbath first before I got into Maiden. So I saw Maiden for the first time in 2011 on the Final Frontier tour.
Right.
And that was before I met you.
Yeah.
That was just before we met. And then other 2 times were with you in both in Aberdeen. But I still think that the best concert I've seen them do was the Book of Souls tour. I really do.
Legacy of the Beast is the set list we want, but I think technically I agree with you. I think technically the way they were playing during Book of Souls was the best I've seen them. Yeah,
absolutely.
I've seen them 8 times. 8 times.
When did you saw them? Well, let's mention that the first time you saw them. If I don't know if your listeners, I don't know if you're going to tell your listeners this, but this was how you saw them was really lucky.
Yeah, so the first time I seen Maiden was 2010 in Seattle, in America actually. I was over visiting my uncle. Was living in Seattle for about 3 weeks or so, and I bought this Final Frontier T-shirt. And realised that the dates on the back had said, oh, they're playing this venue in Auckland, which is just outside Seattle, at the White River amphitheatre, and checked if there was tickets. There was no standing tickets, unfortunately, so it was seating, but I was like, do you know what, I'll pay that, let's go see Maiden. And the set list they had was really, I mean, I know that this is quite controversial. I love their new stuff.
Do I?
Yeah, I think Maiden's modern stuff is excellent. I know a lot of people will disagree, and that's fair enough. But I really like their new stuff, and we got to see a set list that was comprised mostly of the newer material.
And when we looked it up yesterday, you and I, we just actually thought that it was just an amazing set list. And I know that there was obviously a couple of old standards in there, but like I said, I would actually pay a good sum of money to go and see them do a set list that covers entirely the second period of when Bruce and Adrian come back.
Yeah, I
would pay entirely to see a set list of that material alone.
That would be great. I'm wondering if there's a bootleg actually of that tour, at least. Or something
yes,
like that.
It certainly was a great set list. I remember they also did that set list when they played. I think in 2010 they did was it the first Sonosphere in the UK? Or was it 2009 they did Sonosphere?
I think so. I can't recall. We can look it up at some point.
Yes, but yeah, I agree. Their newer stuff may be a bit more progressive, but it's Maiden. It's Maiden at they're his best right now. They're with the Book of Souls. It's like, how could that be better?
Yeah.
But then I said the same about Matter, Life and Death. I said the same about the Final Frontier. So you know,
that's true. I loved the Final Frontier when it came out, but actually, I'm now looking at my list that I've made. I'm quite surprised about how far back it is. But this is the thing.
You're not going to like my list.
Well, we'll discuss that. So how this is going to work? These are, and before we start getting our knickers in a twist and all that, these rankings that we've got are our favourite. The order that we put them in, because that's our opinion and what we think is our favourite. So the obviously the later albums, the ones that are ranked 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, these are the best ones. The ones that are ranked 10 to 16 aren't the ones that we normally play as often. That's not to say that they are bad albums. I don't believe Maiden have got apart from one bad album, but we'll get to that. I don't think they've got much
I agree.
poor material.
I agree.
mostly everything here is good, and there's not a thing on here that I don't listen to. I do listen to everything.
I think there is one that I
Struggle to listen to.
I just never reach for it. But let's just say we'll get to it.
Yeah, we'll get to it. So the format that we're going to do, because there's two of us and we've got two different lists, and this is not an official podcast. This is just us kind of messing around and giving our thoughts on the individual album as well. Whether or not we're actually going to publish this one, we don't know yet, but it might come up at some stage. So the way that we're going to go is we're going to run it in the order of release. So we'll start with the original album, which is Iron Maiden in 1988, and then we'll run all the way through to Book of Souls in 2015. I will say that live albums are out.
No live albums, no compilations.
No compilations. It's purely just studio albums.
Indeed.
Okay, and we do have a list of that somewhere that we'll give you a link towards, but I believe you'll find that on like Maiden's website, Wikipedia, the official studio albums, not live releases, compilations or best ofs.
16 studio albums, I believe.
16, yes, that's true. So we're going to start with our first Iron Maiden album, which was in 1980, which was self-titled Iron Maiden. So Iron Maiden was released with Paul Di'Anno on vocals, so this is pre-Dickinson era.
And Dennis Stratton on guitar before Adrian Smith.
Before Adrian Smith joined.
Who's a lovely guy, by the way.
Yeah.
He talks about his time in Maiden with great fondness, and he actually says that even though he doesn't think he was cut out to be in Maiden for their huge years, he's such a down-to-earth guy, Dennis Stratton. He really talks about his time with Maiden with great fondness and respect.
I remember seeing him on the History documentary a couple of years ago.
Great guy.
So Dennis Stratton, Adrian Smith was not in the band yet. Clive Burr was playing drums.
May he rest in peace.
Yes, and Dave Murray was there and Steve Harris. So really the only two members that were there that are on it today are Steve Harris and Dave.
Yeah, Dave Murray, before they had an album out, Dave Murray was in and out. Obviously the most consistent ever member of Maiden, Steve Harris, but on record they are the only two that have appeared on every single Iron Maiden album to date.
That's true. I'll talk about it just before I give my ranking. Some notable tracks for me on this record are Prowler. Remember Tomorrow's on that as well, which is a great track.
It's fantastic.
And obviously title Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden on the album Iron Maiden. That's a song they still play to this day.
Prowler opens it.
Well, Prowler's a great song.
Fantastic.
So for me, well, I don't know, how do you want to do this? Do you want to give your thoughts before?
Well, my thoughts on it. Well, I'm going to be honest. Iron Maiden. The debut album was the first ever release I bought by the band. That and Number of the Beast. This was when I was a bit ignorant towards Iron Maiden. It was mainly my brother that liked them, and I was more into AC/DC. He liked Iron Maiden, and I liked AC/DC. But I tried. This was in 2004, and then I kind of put Iron Maiden away for a while and didn't really re-listen to them until about maybe a couple of years later when A Matter of Life and Death came out. I think that the debut album is a very worthy debut. The one thing that I was surprised at was the version that I bought. Track number 2 was Sanctuary, which I believe was not on the original album release.
I think it's on the remaster.
It's on the remaster, which is the one I bought. One of my favourite songs. But I love Transylvania. I love Charlotte the Harlot is one of my favourite ones they did. There's a lot of good stuff. A different Iron Maiden coming out of their more, because Paul Di'Anno had a bit of a punky feel to them as well.
Yeah, it was definitely a different sound to what they evolved into. I like this record. It's really high up on my list though, in terms of, well, sorry, I say low down on my list, like surprisingly quite low, purely because it's one that I don't listen to often. I think as well the production quality, I know it's a first album, the production quality is quite low as well, which you could say, oh yeah, it was the late 70s, early 80s, right, fair enough, but there was a lot of albums that were coming out at those times done by the same record label that were, much more refined, and
indeed,
I felt like it suffered because of that. So for me, Iron Maiden is actually sitting at 13, would you believe?
Well, that is quite funny, because for me that album on my list is sitting at number 12.
Number 12, well, there you go.
Because we haven't really discussed
no, we haven't discussed it at all.
Deliberately, this is the first time we're doing this.
And it's sad to say that because it is such a good album, but for me personally, it's not one that I go back to that often.
It's one I go back to, but it's just not. It's just not there. But then there are many releases past this that are higher up than that you may disagree with me. But this is what it is.
I think we will disagree on a number of them, but we'll get to that. 1981 then was the release of Iron Maiden's second album,
Killers,
which was Killers.
And by that point, Adrian Smith came in.
Adrian Smith had joined. Paul Di'Anno still on vocals, Clive was still on the drums. Killers a much better record, I feel, than Iron Maiden. It was a big jump up, a big step up. A lot more technical prowess on there. Some excellent tracks. Wrathchild.
Oh, Wrathchild. Amazing. We heard that live. We heard it live.
Yep, on the Book of Souls tour.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, excellent. It's such a great song. Really, the bass on that record for me really is the kind of key component. Yeah. Genghis Khan is on that.
Yeah.
Murders in the Rue Morgue. Another Life.
The opening track. What's the instrumental on it that goes into Murders in the Rue Morgue?
Is it Ides of March?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's great. It really is. I used to think that the Iron Maiden debut was better than Killers. When I first heard Killers, I didn't have much time for it. But see, all the time I went back to it, I think, I actually do also think it's a better record.
I think Killers is a much stronger record than Iron Maiden. Where would you put it?
On my list, Jack, Killers is actually number 11. So it's just under Iron Maiden and number 12.
Mine jumps up quite a lot. Mine's number 8.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Killers goes to kind of middle of the road on the sort of scale.
Indeed. Okay. Okay.
But there you go. We then jump to arguably Iron Maiden's most popular record.
Yeah.
In fact, there's well, you can argue between two, but it's definitely a massive step up.
It put them on the map.
Big change in vocalists. They went from Paul Di'Anno, that punky feel, to the air raid siren, and the signature vocalist is, I would say, bowed down before him. Bruce Dickinson.
Not worthy, Bruce Dickinson.
Yep.
What can you say about that? Has it already been
The
said?
Number of the Beast, 1982. I don't think we can say much about that record because it's been overanalyzed to death. The album artwork is so iconic. Like, if you think about, I read Metal Hammer quite a lot, and you read the comments about people that have been interviewed. What's your favourite album artwork? 9 times out of 10, it's Number of the Beast.
And of course, it has the one song that Iron Maiden weren't ever a singles band, but they did have one very noteworthy song on that. That is probably one of 3 best known Iron Maiden songs ever, and that is Run to the Hills.
Yeah. Not actually their most commercially successful single, which
we'll get to,
but I find that quite surprising. Normally when I speak to people who aren't into rock music or aren't into metal and they've at least heard of Iron Maiden, they'll say, oh yeah, Run to the Hills, because it's like an instantly recognisable track.
Or Number of the Beast. That's one of the two for talks about.
Hallowed Be Thy Name's on there as well, which is consistently voted their best song ever. Like, it's some record.
Although, when I remember the second when we saw them on the Book of Souls tour, they couldn't play Hallowed Be Thy Name. There was that copyright issue.
I think it was a bit of a dispute. I don't know if there's much truth to that though.
But they've obviously got over it because they're playing it again.
Yeah,
it's a great album though. It's a fantastic album. There's actually a song I'm going to mention this on the remastered. There was a song on the remastered American version of Number of the Beast called Total Eclipse, which was a B-side, which I actually heard.
That's on the remaster.
Yeah, it's on the remaster. What was the track they put on instead of it? And Steve Harris wished they flipped it over and put Total Eclipse on it.
Was it Prisoner?
No, it wasn't. Prisoner's not on there. Number. Oh yeah, it's Prisoner's on Number.
Yeah, is it Gangland?
Ganglands.
Yeah.
Steve Harris says he wished that Ganglands was cut off and that Total Eclipse was put on it.
Yeah.
Total Eclipse, I heard Maine in Scotland play, and they did it really well because they're known for taking songs that
That's got a really good.
Sunrise is gone.
But it's got a really good riff. That. Yeah, great.
Oh, I love that.
And we nearly missed out 22 Acacia Avenue.
Oh my gosh.
What a tune that is.
I love that song.
Yeah, brilliant.
You can't. It's a great album. It's not my favourite, but it's.
Again, yeah. If I kind of agree with you. It's not my favourite. It's not one I play a lot, but I appreciate it for how amazing.
Yeah,
it is.
I agree.
I also feel like because I am such a big Maiden fan. It's not that I avoid it, but I just feel it's oversaturated a little bit because it's played a lot. If you say you're an Iron Maiden fan, it's the one that people normally jump to.
Yeah.
You know, but for me, it's still number 6.
Really?
Yeah.
It's quite weird. You're always going for the number above or below. For me, it's number 5.
Number 5.
Yeah, it's number 5, and it's weird because ideally, a couple of years ago that would have been higher. But again, you go to appreciate things a bit more. You know,
this is it. In my latter years, I am definitely appreciating a lot of different Maiden stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like you'll be surprised at my number 2 because it's something that I've came to love a lot more recently. But we'll get to that.
Indeed.
1983 is the next lineup change. So another lineup change for 1983. Enter Peace of Mind and Nico McBrain joins the band. Clive Burr is out.
Nico is our, but the thing is as a shame as it was for Clive, who passed away in 2013 of.
Well, he had multiple sclerosis,
and very big. And the thing is, he still spoke to the band. They did a charity concert every year in his honour or something like that. The Hammersmith. Nico, when you mention who's the drummer of Iron Maiden, it's Nico McBrain.
Yeah.
It's not Clive Burr.
Even though Clive Burr was on their most commercially successful album.
Exactly. And Nico is the eldest member of the band, totally insane, but great, lovable guy, totally insane, fantastic drummer.
And he's been with them since 1983.
Never moved from the band, even when they went through the lineup changes with Bruce. He stuck with them. Great. I would love to sit down and have a beer with that man, with Nico. He would be hilarious.
Out of all the people in the band, Nico's the one that you... Well, I don't know, I like all of them.
Nico and Bruce, I think, would be the most chatty. And I think Steve would have a lot to say. I think the 3 guitarists would maybe be a bit shy. I like Nico and Bruce and Steve for sure.
Yeah. But then more about the record, 1983 Peace of Mind, for me, it's another step up.
It's a great album. It's a great album.
It's got another iconic track, The Trooper.
Oh.
It's got Where Eagles Dare. It's
Flight of Icarus.
Yep, it's smashing. It's a great record.
You cannot go wrong with Peace of Mind. You just cannot. It's actually. Do you know something? I actually think Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine and Audioslave said that when on Flight 666 he said that he wore Peace of Mind out. He went through quite a few copies of that, and he bugged his parents to death by playing it. And at night he had these big, one of the first headphones. He plugged it in and listened to it some more. He was addicted to that, and he had it on cassette and LP, and he wore it out to death. And that just goes to show what an iconic album it is. I remember the first time I heard it. Again, I became a big Maiden fan later on. I put it on my iPod and I listened to it on a hot summer's day out for a walk, and I just thought, this is just insane. It's just brilliant.
It was the first. I always think Iron Maiden do this really amazing thing of painting a world of you. Like I don't know if I'm justifying that right, but like a way of imagining like really good imagery.
Indeed.
It's just albums that you can listen to that you can just escape to, and I feel that Peace of Mind was the first album that you could just stick on and you could escape into this world and just listen to the tracks that they've got, the stories that they've got to tell. To Tame a Land.
Oh, it's brilliant.
It's an epic track.
That's brilliant.
It's a phenomenal album. It's really good. For me, it's another step up. It jumps to number 5.
Interesting. Okay, because for me it is number 3.
Number 3. Right. 3. That's quite high.
This is interesting because it had to be in that position for me.
Yeah.
It's one that I always associate with Maiden, and it's just even the set lists that they were doing on that tour, because obviously they only had 4 albums and they were still covering the first 2 as well, plus Number of the Beast. plus Peace of Mind, and it's brilliant album.
Excellent.
Can't go wrong with it.
Brilliant.
So listen to it. If you have never listened to Iron Maiden, Peace of Mind's a great one to start off with.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Or the next one. Which was 1984, and this is again a super popular record. Of course, we're talking about the mighty Power Slave, which broke Maiden's streak a little bit because they went 1980, 81, 82, 83, 84, and then they had to go on a 2-year tour of the Power Slave because it was so massive.
Power Slave is just probably, for me, one of the most iconic Iron Maiden moments ever. It's fantastic. It really is. Nico's second album with the band. Again, many people call the Peace of Mind lineup to the 88 lineup. Many people call that the lineup. The five of them. The twin guitar attack of Smith and Murray.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course it opens with the song that, Aces High. I mean,
that's pretty much the intro track for most of the gigs they do now.
Well, we heard it live. We heard Aces High live. We've heard 2 Minutes to Midnight live. But what really got me was that when we saw them on the Book of Souls tour and they actually played the title track, Power Slave.
Yeah.
How nuts did you and I go when that happened?
It's brilliant. And just the guitar solos and that are a step up as well. It's got their I was going to say their longest song to date, but it's not because it changed recently. But it was their longest running song, 13 minutes.
Which closes the album.
Yeah, Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
A great song.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. It slows. It gets really slow in the middle, and then it builds back up, really creeps up, blasting with the drums, and then this epic guitar solo just kicks in before it comes back to the normal riffage. Excellent tune, excellent album, really well constructed.
There's 2 instrumentals on there as well, or there's one.
I think there's one. Is it Lost for Words or something?
Yes, and then there's I can't remember the name of the song. Back in the Village. Back in the Village.
Yeah.
Stunning work. There's some really good cuts on these albums that you just think that they'll never play live. Although you and I did hear Made in Scotland do Rime of the Ancient Mariner.
We did.
2 years ago. They did it extremely well.
Yeah, because it wasn't like an anniversary of that, but they did say, because I think they played 2 Minutes to Midnight, Aces High, and Power Slave, and they said, there's only another one to play, and I thought, they're not going to play Rime of the Ancient Mariner, it's 13 minutes, what are they going to do, Back to the Village?
Yeah,
and they were like, we're going to do Rime of the Ancient Mariner, and then they went and had a break at the slow bit.
The singer went off for a beer, and the guy that did the bass is only singing doom 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 doom, and the one of the guitarists, the other guys went off.
Yeah. If you haven't had a chance to see Made in Scotland, they are a fantastic tribute, worth going to see. Anyway, I would set Power Slave at 4.
Really?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There are 3 Maiden records, and this is really controversial, 3 Maiden records that I would put above Power Slave.
Okay, well for me, Power Slave is number 2.
Well, I can't argue with that. It's a good position for it to be in.
It would have been number 1 had it not been for a certain other.
I hope we agree on this one.
I think we might.
So we jumped to 1986. It's a super personal record for me. It was the first album that I ever bought with my own money.
On CD?
On CD. It honestly it's a really emotional record for me. It means so much to me. It's an amazing record, but if you go to the average Iron Maiden fan, it's not one that they would put this high up.
Which amazes me.
Yeah, it does. But every song is amazing from start to finish, the whole way through it. It ends with one of the most epic tracks of all time. We're talking about Somewhere in Time, which is 1986?
The first time I heard that album was in late December 2010. As I said, I got into Maiden, all the Maiden stuff a little bit later. By that point, I already knew I was going to see them, so I thought I'll need to bulk up on the listening. I remember catching the bus to work a really cold winter's morning, and I plugged the iPod in, and I put on, and on the intro came to Caught Somewhere in Time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my god, what the hell is this?
It does a really good job of getting into like a science fiction kind of.
It's amazing
mood. And the thing is, I was dead young when I bought it, and I bought it because of the artwork. The artwork on Somewhere in Time is like Derek Riggs, who does the art design for Iron Maiden, outdid himself with that.
We haven't mentioned Maiden's mascot Eddie, but I think that the Eddie on the cover of Somewhere in Time is one of the best Eddies they've ever had.
Yep, I wouldn't have got it tattooed on my arm.
You have indeed, my friend. And well, it's interesting because the when they did the set list, we're talking before I talk about the set list of that tour. Go back to Maiden Scotland for a minute. I actually saw Maiden Scotland Without You in 2017, and they played the whole of Somewhere in Time, and it was just. It was amazing. They only announced they were doing that the day of the gig. So my friend, by that point, I think I was off Facebook. My friend sent me the post, and I thought, oh my god, waiting for a treat, and we were. And I think, mate, you'd really appreciate
that. I would have. They don't actually play a lot of the songs nowadays, apart from Wasted Years, which comes back a lot.
Heaven Can Wait last appeared on the...
Was it Flight 666?
Either Flight 666 or did they do that Made in England?
I can't remember.
But yeah, these songs, I mean, The Loneliness of a Long Distance Runner. I mean, excellent. That's a fantastic song.
Deja Vu.
Sea of Madness.
Yep.
Just Wasted Year. It really. I never would have thought this would end up being what it is on my list.
Me neither. I think we're on the same page with
I think we are. Why don't you go first, mate? What is it on your list?
For me, and I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed with this. I don't care. This is for me. Somewhere in Time is my absolute number one. It's unbeatable.
We agree here. For me, mate, Somewhere in Time is number one for me as well. I love this album. I always will. It's the one I always come back to. This just outdoes Power Slave for me.
I would agree with that. I think for me it outdoes another one.
But we both agree that it's number one for us.
Oh, it's number one. Well, Power Slave was your number two.
And the thing is, though, I'm going to get back to it was indeed, but there's a lot of people that criticised Somewhere in Time because there's a lot. I'm the one that followed it because there was a lot of people that says that they were heavily using was it synthesizers? And there was a few keyboard work in it, but it's the music in that, the musicianship. The sound is stunning. The songs are great, and the set list from that tour was also great. If you look up the set lists that were doing, it's a damn shame that there was never an official video DVD filmed of that tour.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get it.
No, the bootlegs on YouTube and odd market scouts.
Plus, we've missed a 30th anniversary, so maybe a 40th anniversary.
Well, maybe if they release something with a film that was never, maybe I think they have filmed stuff. I think they did film stuff. They're just never.
Yeah, I remember watching the thing with Bruce Dickinson, and he was saying that he had the jacket that lit up, but it took so much battery power that it only lasted like half a song or something. So we're going to move on to the next one. We jumped to 1988. So again, we're doing the 2-year jump again. This is Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Arguably, for most people, for most fans, this is Maiden's finest hour.
Yes.
My brother.
This is high up on my list.
This is my brother Rory. If you're listening, hi Roars. This is his favourite Maiden album. This is his favourite. Yeah,
there's a lot of people that I know this is their ultimate Iron Maiden album.
I can see why.
It follows the trend of the Somewhere in Time when it's a bit more synthy.
It does. Yeah.
It also has a lot of commercially successful ones. Can I Play with Madness?
That was a really successful single for them.
My favourite one is Clairvoyant.
The Clairvoyant's brilliant. Again, another one that I wish they would bring back.
Yeah. But again, it's a concept record, and it's to do with the sort of being like the foresight and being able to foresee.
Didn't they cover a lot of this album when they did the Made in England
Made in
tour?
England. Because Made in England was the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son tour.
Yeah. There's a lot of great songs in here. Only the Good Die Young is another one. That's a great one.
It's a great record.
Do you know something? I'm going to admit here, and you probably will not like this, and we're including the 2 90s albums that Bruce did with the band. For a while, this was the Maiden album with Bruce on vocals from the first period that I listened to the least.
Right.
And particularly because for some reason it took me a while to associate with this album. I knew the hits because I knew that they were on Best of the Beast or Edward the Great or something, but the rest of the material really took me a while. But now I really like it. I do. I think, and I would love to have seen them on that Made in England tour when they covered most of that. I really like it. It's a really good album, and I can see why it is declared by many fans as Maiden's magnum opus.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of with you. It's not one that I didn't listen to much, but it grew on me. But we'll speak about Book of Souls later. Book of Souls is a grower, right?
Yes.
Book of Souls, and we'll come to Book of Souls later on. But Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is a grower, but it grows over a period of time.
Indeed.
And it grows with you, and it matures with you as a fan.
With you.
And it's now gotten to a point where it is my number 2.
Number 2?
It's my number 2.
Interesting. Okay, for me it is number 4.
Right. Yeah, it's creeped.
But again, it wouldn't have been that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But it is now.
So now we come to 1990. There's a we're laughing because we know what's coming.
We have disagreed about this album so much in college, and
are you talking about the next one or are you talking about this one?
I'm talking about this one.
Oh, are you?
I'm talking about this one and the next one, mate.
1990s record. There was a lineup change. Adrian Smith left the band.
And in came Yannick Gers.
And Yannick Gers joined the band. And can I just point out as well, a lot of haters for Yannick Gers.
Yes.
You need to stop that. Yannick Gers is a legend.
He is.
Amongst the Maiden community. And we need to stop hating on him because he's a brilliant guitar player.
He's a brilliant showman.
He's a really good entertainer and he's a really lovely chap.
He's a lovely guy.
Yes, he did take over Smith's position. That's a hard position to take on.
Hard shoes
but
to
he's
fill.
put in a lot of effort in the modern era stuff.
And also the thing is, he came from, I don't know many people know, he actually came from Ian Gillan's band.
There you go. He did solo stuff with Bruce Dickinson.
He did do solo stuff with Bruce Dickinson, and he was in the band Gillan, which was Ian Gillan from Deep Purple's former solo band. Again, not easy to replace Adrian Smith.
No.
Not easy at all.
But it brings us to the record, which is No Prayer for the Dying. 1990. I'm
going to admit to you, when I first heard this, I played the crap out of this.
Really?
Yeah. I listened to this album. I was staying with my grandparents for the week, and it's weird because albums, you remember where you were sometimes when you listen to them, and Maiden's catalogue brings back a lot of memories for me. So I was in my room at my grandma's house, and I got back from work that day, and I remember my grandma, as I went in, would you like a cup of tea, and I wanted to unwind after work for a while, and I put the earphones in, and I turned the lights out, and I listened to this album, and of course Tail Gunner come on. Now, I thought that this album, for some reason I really liked it at that time. But it's very funny how when years go by, you realise this is not a good album at all. That's the only way I can describe it. I cannot see how I liked this album. It's got the singles, it's got Holy Smoke, it's got Tail Gunner, and it has also got Maiden's biggest.
Yeah, this is what I was going to mention. It's got Iron Maiden's most commercially successful single on it, which is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
Which a lot of people, my friends who are not Maiden fans, disagreed with me. They said that's not an Iron Maiden song. You said that was a joke. The Iron Maiden songs are more successful than the Hills. You're wrong.
No, actually, if you look up the statistics, it is Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
I mean, you've got the assassin. Better watch out. I am here. It's just.
Do you know what? That's better than that entire record. You singing that right there.
Thank you very much. Hooks and You.
Do you know what? Actually, out of all the songs that run it, Hooks and You is the one that I'd probably listen to the most.
Mother Russia. Mother Russia.
No.
It's just. And Holy Smoke is just cheese. It's and it's no wonder that no songs get played from this album to this.
Well, they did. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. Is the most recent.
16 years they haven't done it.
Did they not play it on one of the Dance of Death legs?
No. Oh yeah, no, they did.
Yeah.
But it's not on. It's not on the live album Death on the Road.
Yeah.
But they did bring it back for a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, it's. I'm sorry, Maiden. This is a dreadful record.
It's not a good album at all.
It's the only one that I would say is straight up awful, and I would avoid with all costs.
I think as well that their appeal by this point was actually coming down a bit.
Yeah.
I think that Seventh Son, they were stadium status. They were worldwide huge, and I think their popularity. And Adrian Smith decided he'd had enough.
Yeah.
He wanted to do other things.
He thought the band was going in a strange direction.
He did, and actually, so they actually played for the first time in years in the studio. They went back to doing theatres in the UK.
Wow.
And it was. And yes, they sold them out, but
it was a long fall at the bottom because the venues got even smaller in the States in the 90s. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
No Prayer for the Dying is for me their worst record. I know that a lot of people will jump on this. Oh, what about the Blaze stuff? That's even worse. I find myself listening to the Blaze stuff more than I'll ever listen to this record. For me, No Prayer for the Dying is straight up 16. It's the worst record.
Second time we agree on this, my friend. It's also now at my bottom of the list, and I never, ever thought I would say that about this album. But now I can't. I don't reach for it at all. I do not reach for it at all. At all.
Yeah, it's one of these ones that I could take off my Maiden playlist and
never hear again.
And wouldn't be that bothered.
No, if it was deleted entirely from their catalogue and they decided not to produce it, and it was taken off the streaming sites, and it was you couldn't buy the vinyl or the CD, I wouldn't be bothered. I wouldn't even be bothered not hearing Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter ever again, because it's not a Maiden song that I like, really.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, if they played it live, I would kick back and I would enjoy it and soak up that from the crowd singing along to it. But I'm with you, I don't reach for it. And that's all I can say about it. I can't believe I was so in love with it, but then again, your taste does change, doesn't it? So
That's true. Speaking of tastes changing, we're moving on to 1992's Fear of the Dark.
Now in college, you and I had a big dispute about this, because I actually told you that I love this album, and I still do really like it.
I began listening. I started listening to this, and it was after I'd listened to No Prayer for the Dying, and I felt, oh, here we go again. It's another crap record. It's rotten. There's not a lot going on here. It's really commercial. It's really cheesy. It's not got a lot going for it. Yes, it's got Fear of the Dark on it, which is a fantastic song, and I'll give it that. But the rest of the album, I was like, it's awful. But I have revisited it in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's really grown on me a lot since then. It's not quite Seventh Son grown on me.
No.
And it is still quite low down on the list, but it has got some great songs on it. Fear is the Key, Child of Death.
Wasted Love.
Wasted Love's a great
It's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
I actually really like Judas Be My Guide. That's brilliant. I really love this album. Again, I heard it in the round about the time.
What's the sort of main single, and this is the fast one?
Be Quick or Be Dead.
See
the thing again, it's the second one with Yannick on guitar in place of Adrian. Bruce was going for a different style. Bruce had a different thing going with his voice for No Prayer for the Dying and Fear of the Dark. His voice was more gravelly.
If you
come on and sing as
that was when he started doing his solo stuff as well. So
yeah,
I'm wondering if that had kind of influenced a change there.
I really From Here to Eternity. It's cheesy. I remember first hearing these songs because my brother bought the live in Donington album and he played it, and I remember thinking, oh, that's not bad. Do you know something? I still really like this album. It's maybe lower on my list than what I would put it before, but it's still we're now getting to the point on my list. Well, we're not in the order of albums we're talking about, but on my list where there's not a bad where this ranks, there's not a bad album left. But
for me, it's getting. There's more songs that are higher up. There's more albums that are higher up, lower down, sorry, than higher up. But
I actually think that this. I think another Chains of Misery is quite. And there are some cheesy moments on it. Childhood's End's really good.
The cheesiest one is what's the one about the robot?
The Robot, Weekend Warrior.
That's the one.
A Weekend Warrior, maybe. And of course, it has got what many people now describe as the Iron Maiden song, which is Fear of the Dark.
Yeah.
They never.
And their album artwork for that is really iconic.
It's a great album artwork. I need to get another T-shirt with that on it. The thing about Fear of the Dark, the song, is that they've only ever ditched it from the set since then once, and it was on the Any Roots Up the World tour in 2005 when they only covered the first 4 Maiden albums. Now, every Maiden show, Fear of the Dark's kept in, and many people say it's getting boring. Should get rid of it.
It's a great crowd song though.
And the thing is, that song came into its being, in my opinion, live. Because in the studio it was good, but they sang along to it on the tours preceding that. But it was Rock in Rio that made made everyone sing the hell.
See, if you actually, I think it was on one of the compilations. They don't actually, the studio version's just never on it. It's the live version. If you're
absolutely, I don't think it was the on Headhunter and Best of the Beast before Rock and Rio came out. I think it's the Donington version.
Yeah, I actually think if you speak to Iron Maiden fans and ask them what did you hear first, Fear of the Dark live or Fear of the Dark studio version, a lot of them will say I heard the live one and listened to it for years before I even touched the studio one.
It's do you know something? I have a lot of fondness for this album, and I still do, and I would love to eventually get it on vinyl. Actually, I think it would be a great add to the collection. So, what does this rank for you, my friend?
For me, Fear of the Dark is an 11.
Okay, really? Wow. Okay. You see, this would have been higher.
It's got some good songs, but it's not quite enough to get
this would have been higher up. Like a couple of years ago, but Fear of the Dark is my number 13.
Okay, so it's actually
just above the debut album. So Iron Maiden, the debut album, is number 12. Fear of the Dark's 13.
Right. Wow. Okay. Good. Excellent. So this is the kind of
right. Here we go.
We're going into the dark ages of Iron Maiden here, because at this point Bruce had left. He went to do his solo career, and Bruce was such an iconic member, and had such an iconic voice that he brought to Iron Maiden. With him leaving and departing from Maiden, they were obviously struggling to find someone to fill in the gap. They went with Blaze Bayley
from Wolfsbane.
Yes, who got a lot of flack for this. Really? A lot of flack. He did the best he could have done.
How can you replace Bruce Dickinson?
You can.
And do you know something as well? When he's been interviewed about it, he never talks about the guy. Obviously, he had a bit of I think he was drinking a lot when he was with the band, but he never says anything against the band.
No.
He doesn't say anything against Steve Harris or Dave Murray or the rest of the guys. He talks about his time in Maiden with great fondness. He actually accepts the fact that it was time for him to go, and he says that he did the best he could. Yeah. And you know what? He didn't have the range that Bruce did. Nobody has the range that Bruce does. But he did his best.
He did.
It's a lot of Maiden fans give him a lot of slack.
Yeah.
And
so the album, which was 1995 with Blaze Bayley, was The X Factor.
It was.
Not to be confused with the crappy television show.
That should never have been.
Nope. So The X Factor, I'm not going to lie, it's got a very strong opening. It's got a really strong. The Sign of the Cross is an excellent Maiden song, and that, I think, like, obviously it's before my time when I'm still quite a young pup as it is, but obviously I never got to hear that when it came out. But I could imagine at the time people going from Bruce has left, let's see what this is all about, to hearing Sign of the Cross, which is such an epic song. The guitar bits in it are just fantastic. The voice is okay, but the guitar parts in Sign of the Cross are brilliant.
I think that Sign of the Cross is a fantastic opener, a much better opener to Tail Gunner. It's a dark album. It's a dark album, and the reason it's a dark album, I think, is because Steve Harris was going through a divorce at the time, and he related a lot to that experiences. Steve Harris at the time was in the midst of a divorce, it says. And also, it's quite interesting, this was the last Iron Maiden album until the Book of Souls to feature the drop in the R's, the logo, if you know what I mean. The Iron Maiden's logo from the first 15 years, you can see that the R drops down, so does the N. But from the next album up to Final Frontier, the logo was even.
Oh wow!
Not including Flight 666 when they put the classic style logo of Power Slave back in. But that was, if you look up the artwork, it's interesting. I didn't really notice that until many years.
I've never noticed that.
I never noticed that until Book of Souls come out. And you look at my T-shirts of the Final Frontier and Legacy of the Beast. I thought, oh yeah. But do you know something? I hated this album when I first heard it. I thought, no, it's not Bruce. No, stuff it. Now, thanks to you, you said go back and listen to it, and I did. It's nowhere near a classic Maiden album, but I would happily listen to this much more than No Prayer for the Dying.
Out of the Blaze records, it's the best one.
It is the best one of the Blaze albums.
The first two tracks, I believe the second track is Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
That's a good song.
It's a great song.
Yeah. But see, for me, the rest of the album, garbage.
Fortunes of War, I mean,
it's garbage.
It goes on and on.
There's not a lot to say about it. It's
the first three, and then of course the single that they released from this was really cheesy. It was Man on the Edge, and it was. I mean,
Man on the Edge Virtual 11.
No, Man of the Edge, that was Future Real.
Was it Future?
Man of the Edge was on Man of the Edge was X Factor. It's a cheesy choice of single, but yeah, I agree with you. After that, it's kind of forgettable. However, I'd happily listen to that more than No Prayer for the Dying.
That's true. For me, I put X Factor at 14.
Okay. I will just fire up my list here. It is down at the bottom for me, I'm afraid. It is at, let me see. Oh, it is also number 14 on my list. Yes. The X Factor. If you want to give Blaze, the justice, go and listen to it. It is painful when you see him watching the tours of that, because they were by that point.
They were playing clubs.
They were playing clubs in the UK. They were playing clubs. They were playing even smaller.
They went from being the biggest metal band on the planet to playing clubs in America
and in Britain as well. And I think it must have been very, very difficult for that. But that's what happened. But at that time, I think in '95, heavy metal music wasn't cool, and it wasn't cool really for another.
Well, this is it, because I don't know if we're planning on doing this, but we might do a Metallica one at one stage. And
I'd love that.
The timings actually work out.
Yes.
Quite well.
I can see where you're coming from.
For that is definitely the dark ages of the heavy metal genre.
So 14 for this.
14 for X Factor.
Moving on.
I'm going to touch on this one very quickly because there's not a lot to say about it. I don't know about you.
No.
In Virtual 11, it's not a great record. It's Blaze Bayley again. It's another poor attempt.
It's not a memorable album.
It's got one song that I think I would maybe worth mentioning.
It has got it has got an Iron Maiden song that when they played it live with Bruce, it took the audience by storm, and I think it still does very well today. And of course, we are talking about The Klansman. And of course, it's about Scotland.
As long as you don't say Angel and the Gambler.
I think I really got on the nerves of the singer in Made in Scotland when he said any request, and I shouted out Angel. And the guitar player started playing it, and he was like, no. But the Klansman is awesome.
The Klansman's a great song. It was.
And we heard it in Scotland.
We heard it in Aberdeen. It was amazing. The Klansman, brilliant song.
I think Bruce does it better.
I think Future Reels get a really good guitar lick in it, but
I don't mind Future Reel. It's. But again, I think that they did all they could. It's the same with Judas Priest. I mean, Judas Priest had a different singer for 2 albums in the 90s as well.
Yeah.
I think one was 97 and the other one was 2000 or 2001. But they tried.
Yeah.
It didn't work. However, I don't think it's as bad an album as No Prayer for the Dying. I can listen to this.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's weird that I'm saying this.
My Virtual 11 is 15.
Me too.
Because it goes No Prayer for the Dying is the worst, Virtual 11 and then X Factor.
That's my bottom 3 as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
we're agreed on that.
And it was the first Maiden album. It was the first Maiden album to use the different logo, and we'll go through that later.
Yeah,
I don't think Right. Okay. So 1999. The Air Raid Siren.
2000?
Well, yes, but I was just jumping ahead. The Air Raid Siren returns.
Yep.
Bruce Dickinson comes back. There was a bit of a disagreement whether Steve Harris said would he want to come back, and then Adrian Smith decides. And then Adrian Smith decides to come back, and they do a big tour. Yannick remains.
Good. Because he's a great guitar player.
He's a really good guitar player.
Yep.
People said, "Oh, they don't need the 3. They should ditch them." Why?
The 3's great.
Why should you ditch them?
The 3's good. And now that Bruce and Adrian are back, this is the lineup that they've had for 20 years.
More than that, 21 years.
Yeah, so
they did the big American tour when the compilation Ed Hunter came out, and then in 2000 they decide they release. What can I say about this album?
This for me is really high up.
Well, it's not as high up in my book.
For me, it's so high up.
But it is a great album.
We're talking, of course, of Brave New World.
You're going to kill me with my
which, for me, does not have a bad song on it.
It's a great album.
It is an incredible album. I can listen to it any day of the week.
You reach for it a lot, don't you?
Oh yeah, this was one for me when I was growing up. I'd stick on, I'd just go walk and I'd sit and listen to it for ages.
Great on the headphones.
Such a good album, not a bad song on it. Wicker Man, such a great opening.
The Wicker Man's one of the great Iron Maiden.
Arguably, Wicker Man is a better album intro than Aces High. Arguably.
I would give you that. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And then straight it goes to Navigator, a nice, good tune with that one. Slows it right down, but also keeps that momentum going. And then obviously Brave New World
itself.
Blood Brothers. Oh.
We've heard that a couple of times live, haven't we?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I agree. It's a great album. It's a great return to form, and again, it put them into playing stadiums and arenas now. And yes, there were more albums to come, but I think that when Bruce came back and Adrian came back and gave them a kick up the backside, everybody was talking about Iron Maiden again.
I always think if Bruce had never left, we would never have got that album.
Yeah.
It's just a big explosion of we're back and we're ready to go.
But I'm going to say this now. Out of all the albums that they've done in the last 20 years, Brave New World is actually the one I reach for the least.
Really?
Love the album.
It's one I probably reach for the most.
But it's the one I reach for the least of the five. So this Brave New World in my list is number 10.
Right. Oh wow, really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. Brave New World for me is number 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting here. Yes, see, you can actually see, ladies and gentlemen, the differences of our opinion. But you know what? Would it be boring if we were all the same?
That's true.
There
are people out there screaming at me right now for not putting Power Slave as number 1.
And there are people at me probably screaming that I've got this at number 10.
Yeah.
But you like what you like.
Yeah.
But I love the album. You can't go, in my opinion now, what we've got left, you can't go wrong with.
Of course.
This was a very, very difficult decision, but yes, I am going to say number 10 for Brave New World. But a great album. I love it. It's the one I listen to the least out of the Reformation albums, but I still love it, and I do listen to it.
Excellent, good. We then jump to 2003.
Yeah.
Dance of Death. It must have been quite an unusual time because people thought Brave New World came out. Their momentum was back.
Yeah.
Could they keep it up? And I think they did with Dance of Death. It's not as high up for me as Brave New World, but it's still a really good album. There's some really good songs on it. Wildest Dreams, Passchendaele was consistently voted Iron Maiden's easily in their top 5 songs of all time.
And the title track, Dance of Death, it's
brilliant.
We heard that.
The guitar solos come back full force with this
when
album.
they played that live the first time I saw Iron Maiden on the Final Frontier tour in 2011, when they played Dance of Death, I couldn't believe how good it was. I listened to Dance of Death a lot before I went to see Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
I love that album.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's energetic, it's power. For me, it beats Brave New World. I know that there's a lot of fans screaming at me right now, but I love the album. Rory, my brother, said, "You want a great Iron Maiden album? Listen to this," and I did. And I loved it. I even like the acoustic song, the one they did on it, Journeyman. It's interesting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that knock that.
I quite I've watched the live Death on the Road.
It's a great concert.
DVD, and it's they play it live. It's really good.
In Germany, wasn't it?
Dortmund.
Yeah.
Dance of Death, really good. For me, it pulls back a little bit, and it doesn't quite reach Brave New World at all.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
It doesn't come near it.
Okay.
It's still a great record. If we were going to do top 16 of Iron Maiden's album artwork, it would be number 16. Would you agree with that?
Probably.
It's terrible. It's the digital dog.
It's a terrible cover.
Child. Oh, it's terrible.
The shot. Actually, the shot of the band at the back cover's better than the front of the cover.
Yeah. See if they just had Eddie as Death on his own.
It's a terrible cover.
That would have done it.
It's a terrible cover. When you compare it to the classic covers like Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, even Fear of the Dark, which it's, in my opinion, a better album than Fear of the Dark, but Fear of the Dark's got a much better cover.
Yeah, that's true.
But a great album.
Mm-hmm.
I love this album more and more.
It's in my top 10.
I love it more and more each time I hear it. So for you, it is.
For me, Dance of Death is 9.
It's also 9 for me.
There you go. Good.
Really strange.
What was your Brave New World?
My Brave New World was number 10.
Number 10, so it does
So we've clashed, as in we've got the same rankings for a couple actually.
Well, I think our number 1 and our last 3 are kind of.
And number 9 for this.
I'm surprised Somewhere in Time is your number 1 actually.
Oh really?
Yeah.
No, I love it.
It's a great record.
Okay, so I'm getting excited now.
Yes.
And I'm getting excited now because we're now going to talk about the album that actually made me an Iron Maiden fan.
Okay, good. 2006.
2006. We're talking about a matter of life and death, and the reason I'm saying this is because my brother was the big Iron Maiden fan. In 2006 he went to see them at the SACC in Glasgow, supported by Trivium, and on this tour, and Lauren Harris made Steve's daughter, and on this tour of course they were playing the album all the way through, plus a few classics. My brother told me that this album was excellent, and because I liked my progressive rock like Rush and Magnum and melodic rock, Queen and all that, Rory said to me, "You'll really like this album." My dad, they went down to Glasgow and my dad bootlegged the gig.
Okay.
Now, Rory gave me 2 things that night when he came back. He gave me an old copy that he made of Matter of Life and Death on CD, and my dad gave me a mini disc of the gig when I used to have a mini disc player. And I remember lying in bed. This is the night after they've been to the gig,
Right, okay.
Because he phoned me when they were at the gig and let me hear Fear of the Dark on the phone, and Hallowed Be Thy Name. But I listened to A Matter of Life and Death from start to finish, right? And my mind was completely blown. This was, I couldn't believe it's taken me. I was listening to the band. I bought their albums 2 years ago. I kind of dismissed them throughout 2005. Why did I dismiss them now? My Life and Death got me an Iron Maiden. I love the album from start to finish.
Good.
What about you?
A Matter of Life and Death, I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship.
Okay. Want to hear it?
For me, I really struggled between this and Dance of Death.
Okay. Interesting.
These were both in tying for which was better than the other. And Dance of Death slightly beat it.
Okay. See that you wouldn't have said that a while ago.
I wouldn't have.
Because you always talked
I think Matter of Life and Death has got excellent songs on it. I think A Different World, the opening track,
one of the best openers they've ever done.
Can I just say, probably the most underrated Iron Maiden song ever. I think that deserves a top 5 slot.
I would have loved to have heard them do that on the Legacy of the Beast tour. Bring back that and These Colours Don't Know the follow track.
I think Bruce's singing on it's immense.
Live as well, it was incredible.
I love, and there's some really good songs on it. I just feel like it's hard with Iron Maiden because there's so much good material there, so it's not like I don't want to give it a higher position, because I do want to give it a higher position. It's just that there's stuff that I reach for and listen to more.
It's an album that you've got to listen to top to finish though, because it's
I would agree, but I would also say that the last 2 tracks aren't bad.
Really?
Yeah.
You see, I would. Okay, I'm going to be friendly here. I'm totally disagree with you there. I think the whole album was a masterpiece.
I agree that majority of it is excellent. I just feel like that the last 2, what's the one?
The Lord of Light and the Legacy.
Really difficult for me to listen to. Like
that one is. The tracks are long on this.
I don't want to offend you. They give me Blaze vibes.
Okay, no, mate. You can say what you want, honestly. Well, it's also got the first single that was dropped from this was the reincarnation of Benjamin Briggs.
That's a good song.
And I hate you because you heard them do it live.
I heard them do it live. I also heard them do These Colours Don't Run live.
See, I am actually.
Which are great songs. But then, like, Out of the Shadows.
Out of the Shadows is really good.
I'm not a massive fan. I'm not.
Brighter Than a Thousand Suns.
It's good. It goes on a bit too long for me, but.
Okay.
But yeah, I like the album. I think it's good. I used to have the poster in my room. I used to have the T-shirt.
You didn't see that tour, did you?
I never got to see that tour, but it was. Yeah, I think Dance to Death is slightly better than it. So Matter of Life and Death for me is number 10.
Well, for me, it's number 7.
Well, okay.
It's number 7. It's number 7. It's my second favourite of the Reformation albums.
Right.
And that I can't say anything more good about the album. It is number 7. Again, the choices was getting ridiculous now, because we're talking about every single one of the Reformation albums was good. None of that was an easy choice.
No.
Putting Brave New World on the bottom and Dance of Death after that, then it wasn't easy, but I have to go with my heart.
Yeah.
And for me, A Matter of Life and Death is up there, but it's number 7 in the list. So I love it. I love it. Okay, now
I think that's the one thing that we do have in common, that we really love the Reformation albums, the Reformation era. It's actually really difficult to find Iron Maiden fans that adore the Reformation era. As much as I feel like you do, and I feel like I do as well. I think that the Reformation era is it's another like it's. I wouldn't say it's as good as the 1980s material, but it is. It's like it's so hard to compare it, because it's just so epic and just so interesting to listen to.
Amazing. It's a great album.
That takes us to 2010, which is the first time I've seen Iron Maiden.
Same here, but a year later, you saw them on the first leg of the tour.
Which was Final Frontier.
Indeed, 2010.
That's another step back for me.
Right, this is going to get really interesting now, so go on, tell us your thoughts on it.
So I'm going to just come out with it. Final Frontier for me is at 12. so it jumps back to 12.
Is it your least favourite of the refurbished?
It's my least favourite of the refurbished. It's my least favourite of the refurbished era.
I know, you said it quite posh.
I liked it when it first came out.
Indeed. Okay.
But as I'm getting older, it's not as good. I love El Dorado. I love the Talisman.
Oh, the Talisman.
I really love the When the Wild Wind Blows. I think that's a really good song.
It's a fantastic song.
Apart from that, though, it doesn't really do a lot for me.
Right. This is interesting.
And the title track
is good. You don't like the title track?
It's rubbish. I really don't like the title track.
Whoa.
I like Bruce's singing in it.
Wow.
But it's really basic.
Well, I'm gonna.
And I just felt like the big 10-minute intro of them just like
Satellite 15
making noise. Oh,
I've tried to call me up.
I just skip it. It's like
I'm going to totally rain down on him here. I think I really like the Final Frontier. I remember. I don't like it as much as I like Matter of Life and Death. But I reach for this album more than Dance of Death and Brave New World.
Okay.
The reason it means a lot to me is because it was the first tour I saw Maiden on. I knew that when I saw them, they were going to be playing songs off this album. I bought this album from a Glasgow CD record fair in the Royal Concert Hall.
Right.
I had a good rake and I got a load of stuff. I was down for an audition. The audition didn't go very well, but the following day in the CD record fair was very successful.
Right. Which is all you really want.
Yeah, it was. And I bought it and I took it home and I played it. And I'll admit, I liked it more closer to the gig because this record fair was in March and I went to see them in July I think it was. But the album really, I think the opening, the build-up's great. I love the Talisman. I love the title track. I love El Dorado. I love the Mother of Mercy. I think there's in live as well. I mean, the live DVD concert of that tour, it's called En Vivo, which was done in Chile.
Yeah.
It's one of Maiden's best performances. It really is. You hear them do the Talisman live. And you hear them do Where the Wild Wind Blows and coming home.
Not a fan of that.
Okay, we're gonna. I really like the Final Frontier. So you said on your list it was
number 12.
Okay, for me, the Final Frontier is number 8.
Okay. Yep.
Now
this takes us to the
25 years
most recent album. It goes to the upper half of the list for me. Obviously, I've been through my top 6, so it reaches number 7 for me. This album, which is Book of Souls. What were you ranking it at?
I'm just going to come out with it now before we talk about the album.
Yeah.
For me, Book of Souls is number 6.
Okay, so we're kind of on the same foot with Book of Souls. I
remember when Book of Souls came out, I actually thought to myself, they did so well with A Matter of Life and Death and The Final Frontier. I thought, nah. I remember when it came out, it was a double album. I thought, are they being a bit self-indulgent here? And Rory said, I was signed off work at the time when that album came out.
Yeah.
And I met my brother for coffee and he gave me a copy of the album and he said, you got your laptop at Grandma's, you could have stayed with my grandparents for a while. He said, go home and listen to that, right? And I did, and I listened to it and I wasn't keen.
Yeah.
I thought, no. I said, they've lost the plot. What are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
We're jumping, this was in, when was this, 2015?
That was in the album.
Fast forward a few months later. Wow.
Oh.
There's nothing, I can't say any more about it. Book of Souls is my favourite of the second period Bruce era albums.
Yeah.
Book of Souls is magic. It's a magic album. It's just there's not a weak moment on it. There's maybe one song that I would ditch. I love it.
I think we agree on that song.
Yeah. So your review's going.
So I'm the same as you, but I think it took me a lot longer. I bought it as soon as it came out. The day it came out.
Did you go down to your local record?
Went down to the record store, bought it, took it home because I do stream stuff, but you know me, if I like something I'll buy it. And if it's Maiden, I'm going to buy it the day it comes out. If it's like Metallica, I'm going to buy it the day it comes out.
You bought it on CD, not on vinyl, no?
I bought it on CD. I don't actually have it on vinyl.
Okay.
I bought it on CD. It was a DVD, not the DVD, but it was a DVD like case that it came in because like a special edition.
Yeah, it
like
did that
book.
because it was the first album that they did. The Book of Souls was the first album that they did where there was no making of the album. Normally, Maiden have a bonus DVD of the making, like making the Final Frontier, making Martyr Life and Death, making Dance Death.
I wonder if that might have had to do with the fact that Bruce was going through cancer treatment.
Well, the album was recorded before his diagnosis, wasn't it?
That's true.
The album was recorded in 2014, and then he was diagnosed just after the recording procedures. I think he went back and did a few bits.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my gosh, a great album.
So it took me a while. I liked Red and Black. I thought that was a good song. I really liked Speed of Light. I thought that was classic Maiden. However, apart from that, I really wasn't into it, and even the title track I really wasn't into.
I was the same as you.
Until I seen it live, and I seen it at the Glasgow Hydro.
And then with myself and
then the next day I came up to Aberdeen to go see it again because I thought that was incredible. I'm going to have to see that again. Got on the train and I sat on the train and I listened to that album over and over and over and over and over again. Which, if you know the length of the record, was probably once. But it was Book of Souls. That title track is. It was for me. It was the ultimate grower.
Yeah.
Because
if Maiden were going to set
it was alright when it came out, and now it's phenomenal.
If Maiden were going to set a challenge for you to get into an album, well, Blaze, sorry, didn't do a very good job with the growers there, but
I don't know, we could do this again in 20 years' time, but like, Virtual Liver is the best Iron Maiden record.
Yes, the X Factor is number 2. No, Book of Souls is amazing. I love this album to death.
Yeah.
I never ever thought I'd like an Iron Maiden Reformation album more than a Martyr Life and Death, but Book of Souls has actually kicked it out.
Mm-hmm.
Book of Souls has kicked that one out. I love the album. It's the best time I've ever seen them live, and I couldn't believe how good they were. I couldn't believe how great Bruce sounded, not only on the album but live as well. I think that the songs came over incredible live. I actually really enjoyed that set list that we saw. I think the set list on the Book of Souls tour was phenomenal. And as well, when we saw them on stage on that tour, they just looked like they were having fun. They always are having fun.
I remember Yannick accidentally, I was standing right at the front. It was at Aberdeen, and Yannick kicked the amplifier and it had like a wooden shell around it and he broke part of it off. And then Bruce came up and seen that it had grabbed it. I think it was during Number of the Beast.
Yeah.
Grabbed this bit of wood and chucked it at the audience, and I reached out and I caught it, and I got horrors of scales. Remember it? Blood. And I just was holding it, and I was like in so much pain. And I was like, yeah.
Do you remember too during Red and the Black when we were at the front and we started jumping during the and Yannick pointed at us and started jumping as well. Steve was like, how close we were to the band. It was a magic.
Because the year later they did the Legacy of the Beast tour, and I think there was a lot of factors in that, and that Legacy of the Beast was a lot more packed for 2 reasons. I think one reason was that they weren't playing Glasgow, so a lot of the Scottish fans were just going to the Aberdeen.
And it sold out quite quickly.
Because the Book of Souls one didn't really sell out, and I think 2 because they were doing the classic set list.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Maiden fans and a lot of heavy metal fans remember the 80s and think, oh, it was the best era.
I think they sold out the Glasgow tour, the Glasgow leg of the Glasgow gig of the tour, but you're right, I don't think Aberdeen was completely. They sold out the Final Frontier because that was their first time
in Aberdeen.
In the big, well, not the first time in Aberdeen, their first time in the arena.
Right.
But you've also got to admit as well that the Book of Souls, I loved Legacy of the Beast. It was a classic set list. It was a classic performance. It was mega, but Book of Souls is still my favourite time I've seen them.
Yeah.
And it always will be, I think. It was better than, I mean, the Final Frontier tour was great, but in my opinion they played better on the Book of Souls tour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And of course the Book of Souls as an album, and we now the Book of Souls came out 5 years ago, and this is now officially the longest we've gone without a Maiden album, because do we think we will get another? Do we think we will get another one?
I think we're getting another 2.
Really? Because the guy, like Rod Small,
I don't think Nico's going to, and I hate to say that, I don't think Nico's going to make it till a second one, but I think we're definitely getting another one. We're definitely getting another one, but I think we're going to get 2.
Well, as we know, Nico is or was 68 this year, because when they were promoting Book of Souls, he turned 63.
Yeah.
And yes, he's older than the rest of the band. I think the youngest is.
He's really fit though. Like.
Oh, he stopped drinking after the Final Frontier tour.
Yeah.
I think, and he admitted. Steve Harris is as fit as anything, isn't he?
I think the thing to take away from Iron Maiden, and if will they won't they do more records, is that they're going to do it as long as they're having fun.
That's exactly what Rod Smallwood said. They're going to keep going until the gods come down and drag them off the stage. They'll die on stage. And I think that genuinely, even though
I genuinely think Bruce will go till he's 90.
Bruce loves it. The energy of the man.
Yeah,
the energy of Steve Harris.
Yeah, that's true.
And Yannick Garrison. I think that, and I think as well is that they I think they do love one another. I think they do. They are friends.
It's like a brotherly relationship.
It is. They are, but they get on with each other. I think. I don't think they hate each other. It's not like what Judas Priest have recently come out with, that Glenn Tipton and Keiki Downing hated each other.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's like that with like a guitar partnership where Adrian hated Dave Murray or they hated Yannick. None of that. When Adrian Smith came back, none of them turned on and said, right, Yannick out.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Exactly.
The respect that they have as musicians and as guys. And they're lovely guys. I've met Steve Harris in Aberdeen when he's playing with his side project British Lion. Lovely guy, very shy after the gig, but lovely and approachable. And you, of course, have met the man himself. You met the.
I've met Steve and Bruce.
And what was that like for you?
Bruce.
Yeah, both of them.
I couldn't speak.
I was like me when I met
Bruce Dickinson. I was like, oh, I love you. And it was a spur of the moment, really quick, shaking hands. See you later.
But the thing is that even though it's very quick, it means a lot.
Oh, it means, and I think they know that.
They do. Oh yeah.
Like inside, I can normally hold myself quite well meeting people, but inside I was like a little schoolgirl, like going, oh, he's an absolute legend. I am not worthy to be here. And he's such a nice dude. Steve Harris as well. Such a good laugh.
I think that they'd all be nice. I actually think that, although we've said that Dave Murray and Adrian, Dave Murray particularly, I think is the least talkative for interviews, and same with Yannick. Adrian's lovely, very quiet. Nico a right laugh.
Yeah.
I think they'd all be a right laugh, but I think Nico is just, if you look at the Book of Souls, who did the most press interviews for that? Obviously it was heavily covered because Bruce was coming back, Bruce's comeback after his cancer. But the two people that did the most press for Book of Souls was Bruce and Nico. Mm-hmm. Sometimes together, sometimes apart. Steve Harris didn't do a lot.
Yeah.
Which is quite strange, because he is the main, right? No,
he is the main writer.
I mean, they all contribute.
It's Steve's band.
It's his baby, isn't it? But do you know what? Long live Iron Maiden. Long live. A lot of people say that Black Sabbath are the gods of heavy metal. I'm sorry, Ozzy and co. You're going to have to move over the side here, because for me, that is not to underpin Black Sabbath. It's not at all to underpin Black Sabbath. I love Black Sabbath in all eras, and they're still in my top 30 favourite bands of all time. But for me, the true kings of heavy metal are Maiden. Yeah. For me, I never. They mean so much to me, and long may they reign. And very sadly, they were going to be headlining Download again this year, and of course.
Yes, because as of the time recording this, we're still on that blooming coronavirus.
Yes, but we're not going to talk about that.
No, of course not.
But listen,
we should have seen them. Well, I don't know if you were, but I should have seen them in download.
I would have actually travelled with you, and I would have slept in a tent and muck and got covered in stuff. You know, I would have seen them. But listen, once again, I want to thank you for asking to do this, because it's an absolute pleasure to sit with a dear friend and also talk about, you know, music that we love, and one of our favourite bands of all time.
That's true. This is a bit of a self-indulgent podcast that has went on for an hour and 20 minutes. I think.
Was it?
Yes.
Have we been doing this for an hour and 20 minutes?
80 minutes. Yeah.
Sorry for your.
So if you actually made it to the end, great, congratulations. This is just a bit of fun. It's just for us to talk about it. If you're interested, great. What is your Iron Maiden list? We want to hear about your Iron Maiden list. You could post that on our Instagram. You can comment on the pictures. You can comment on our Facebook. Send us it. Do it. Tell us what your top 16 are. Go from worst to first.
Excellent.
We'll, as part of this, when I publish it, I'll publish Matt's list and I'll publish my list as well alongside it, so you can compare and tell us how wrong we are for putting Somewhere in Time as number one. Good luck with that. But thank you very much for listening. If you did make it to the end, if you want to hear more of this stuff, great. Just give us some feedback on that. If you want to hear something else, if there's something that you want, you can give us a suggestion. Go for it. And we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.